This is a review of the Ryobi 18-inch battery-powered chainsaw. I'm going to talk about some of the basic features and then how to use it, how to take care of the battery and what happens while it's charging, and then into maintaining the chainsaw and how to sharpen the chain. Okay, we're going to go to the unboxing first. So here is our chainsaw. Since we're not cutting, I think we ought to take the battery out, which is grab it here like that and pull it out. This is the Ryobi 18-inch narrow kerf, 40 volt. I chose the Ryobi. I looked at all the different videos I could find. I talked to a few people. And basically what I concluded is that I trusted Ryobi to support the battery size. I've used their 18 volt stuff for a long time, and I love the fact that no matter what color it is or how long ago it was made, I can still slide it into a tool and it runs. So that was the basic decision I made. And I looked at some really expensive ones and I decided that probably a couple of years from now, they'd have gone to a different design. Okay, now why the 18-inch as opposed to the 16-inch? It comes with the bigger battery, the faster charger, and the case. Now the case, I wasn't sure that would be useful. The reason I wanted to buy the saw was to use in the summer when you're not supposed to be using gasoline-powered tools outside and during fire season. But with the case, I've left it on the back of my tractor all winter. I bought this in December, it's now April, and I've used it a fair amount. The case does keep rain off the motor and the control. It doesn't keep rain out of the case, but the way it's built, you can have a cup or two of water inside the case and it doesn't bother it. The basic format of the open battery compartment, so it's open on the bottom and this 5 amp hour battery fits in it, but also the bigger ones that they're coming along with also fits. That's good. The other thing I like, and which I've always had on chainsaws, is the mechanical chain brake. Everything I've had since I was a teenager has had a mechanical chain brake. It does two things. When I'm out in the woods, if I get curious on whether the chain's loosened up, I flip that forward and I don't mind checking the chain tension. This is the interlock. There's a thumb latch here. You have to pull that down first. It doesn't work well if you pull the trigger and the lock at the same time. I have a tendency to do that, but you pull the lock down, then the trigger. You can let go of the lock. Doesn't really matter that much. And then when you let go of the trigger, it snaps on again. This chainsaw has the 2 studs on the side. I looked at some of the ones that had the automatic adjustments and I read glowing opinions about it and I thought, I don't think so. Everything I've ever had has had two studs and the adjusting screw, and I like to have what I consider full control. And the saw comes with a scrunch built in here. It's a little difficult to get it out, but it works. I'd recommend it. You just feel good that you've got one, but I'd carry a full-sized one. The bucking teeth, people have complained. I've read reviews where people complained about the size of the bucking teeth and the fact that they're not metal. I don't think this is a saw that's designed to make heavy sideways cuts, which is really all you need bucking teeth for, is when you're felling a big tree and you want to get more leverage on it. The oiler, this one has an adjustable oiler. There. This is authentic dirt, by the way. You can adjust the oiler at this point. What I'd recommend is you put it on maximum. I doubt you'll ever think you've got too much oil coming out. The oil filler cap could be improved. It's just like a jug cap. And the problem with it is it's really difficult to get all the sawdust off from around the edges. And one of the problems that I read about, and I know that ego saws have this, is the oilers stop working. Well, I think probably the best thing you can do is try and keep sawdust out of your oil reservoir. Now they say that people talk about leakage, and they do leak a little bit. And if you're going to set it down and not use it for a while, you have to do a high-tech fix like this. This is a yogurt container, and put it down somewhere and dump the oil into it. And then when you come back, you can pinch it down and pour it back. And it really works good. Now I only did it once just to prove to myself how easy it was. And mostly I feel like since it's living in the case, it doesn't really matter whether the case gets water in the bottom and oil or anything else, because the saw is never in the bottom of the case. There's a bunch of ridges, so that's not a problem. Well, no video seems complete unless you show how much wood it can cut. So I'm going to set up here, and I have something that sort of looks like a hurricane came through, but actually it was a bunch of loggers. And I'm going to cut as much firewood as I can on one battery. It's been a little over an hour, and I'm starting to think about lunch. And most of that stuff that's on the ground was cut with one bar showing. So anyway, this is, I think, what this saw really works well at is intermittent cutting. You cut for a while, you set it down. You don't have to restart it by pulling on the rope when you do. And it works pretty well. This is the rapid charger and the battery that's been charged, but I'll slide it into place. Cranks up, it's got a fan. I check it before I start and get the voltage, just out of curiosity. It was 32.3 volts. While it's charging, I can read the number of watts on this thing, and the maximum was 276. And when it got done, it's up to 41.1 volts. And I would recommend you get a second chain when you buy the saw. I got one of these Oregon S62, and it was right there on the wall at Home Depot. And I think I liked it a little bit better, but that's not very scientific. How do you know when you need to sharpen your chain? The classic thing is, rather than getting chips, you get dust. And another thing that will mean you need to sharpen it is if you find you're pushing down while cutting. You shouldn't need to ever push down if you're making a vertical cut, because just the weight of the saw and the tooth is designed to suck down into the wood. That's why they have the rakers. The rakers are to keep you from taking too big of a cut. And if you push down, you're just creating friction between the rakers and the workpiece. Now, the other thing is, if you ever look down and if you've got fairly good eyesight and you look at the cutting edge, and if you can see a shiny spot, then you need to fix that and sharpen it. You get it in, you put it into the vise, kind of clean up some of the stuff. This is kind of a good idea anyway, just to get all the junk out of here because it does build up. You'll want to mark the chain so that when you go around, you don't keep going around. A lumber crayon marking just on top of the chain like that works really well. And then the first thing to do when you're actually getting ready to sharpen, before you lose track, is to grease the nose wheel. And there's a little hole up here. Give it one shot. Okay, now if you have a brand new chain, they seem to manufacture these things where the cutting teeth and the rakers are real close together. I haven't got any way to show that today because this one's been sharpened a lot. But you will have to start on many of these with a naked 5/32 file and bring it in, and you might even need to file against the back of the raker so you can get in and have a little bit of wiggle room on the tooth itself. When you're sharpening, and this thing, it's very flexible, and you want to have something so that if you push down, it doesn't flex too much. This is one simple thing. It's just the file with a backer piece, and it's set into it a little bit. For a long time, I've been using this sort of deal, where you have the round file, the flat file, and these two glide bars. But I couldn't find those anywhere. And what I found instead, and I've decided I really like them, is this is a Pferd double file. Now this one's the right size because you want not only the right round file diameter, but you want the spacing right. So this has got the 3/8 spacing for the link length. And when it's sitting on there, it goes onto the bar, and you can pull it forward, and the big handles help you see where you are so that your angle stays the same. When you're sharpening a chainsaw blade or the chain, it works because it's a form cutter. The length of the cutter matters, the angle matters, and just everything matters. But it's really not as fussy as you think. I mean, you can do it with a rig like this. Almost anybody can do a good job, I say. All right, let's take the bar and chain off. Now this is the kind of wrench I like. It's maybe a little bit longer than is necessary, but it's handy. The still and the Husqvarna and these bar nuts, well, the stills are larger. They fit this size, which is, I think, the same size as the spark plugs. But the Husqvarna and this Ryobi take the same size nut. And I don't think I'd ever do this. I don't think I'd ever take this machine apart out in the field. I think it seems a little fussy to me. Now this is the way, so I took the nuts off and loosened the screw, and that makes this come out. And that's what this looks like after. This is one battery's worth of cutting. And there's a problem with this thing in that when you take it apart, it wouldn't be too difficult to end up with dirt not where you want it. Like this part right here, well, it's my finger on a black surface. But anyway, this part is the seal against the oiler. And it's a different texture. And it fits and matches with, anyway, it's the back for that hole there. So there's this off. There's not much trick to getting this off. But you see this little groove, I don't know whether you can see that or not. That's where the oil comes out. And you want to make sure that, you want to make sure, says the man, just filling it full of dirt, that it doesn't get much dirt into it. Because the oil, when it comes out of there, enters the top hole. Now this thing is reversible, so there's, depending on which way you turn it, there's two top holes. And then it's got to come out through the hole and into the chain slot. And as you'll see, as soon as you start cutting, there's sawdust everywhere. But if you take this apart, you want to make sure you get it clean enough so that you're going to have good oil delivery. And so, for the most part, I let it go for a while until I take it apart. And as I say, it's not something to do on the back of the car. Okay, and there, I don't know whether you can see that, but the hook is showing in the hole. And then the other thing that has to happen when you put it back on, you've got to have this part clean, this part's got to be clean. Here's where the bolts go. And then this part down here, see where the stud sticks out? And that fits into this guy. And so you want to have that clean. Now most of the rest of these things, these guys, they're just where there's a hole for a screw. But anyway, those things have to fit fairly accurately. And you don't want any dirt in it. And it's possible to put this on backwards. I haven't done that in years, but I have done it, and it's sort of funny if it isn't really a problem, as you notice right away that there's something wrong. Okay, there's that. Put that on, keep it tight. Okay, now that'll stay there like that. I don't know what it's like if you've got one stud, but with two studs, it hangs. Now, one of the things that I'd do if I had my way, is I'd tell Ryobi to take this plastic part and make it aluminum or something. Because if you let it go too long, this part will fill up with sawdust and then it'll bend out. And it really doesn't matter that much, because the only thing that's really critical is that it's held in place, that it's clean there, and this part is keeping the bar tight. But it'd be nicer if it was more rigid. Okay, so now I've got it in place. There it goes. Okay. Okay, so that's finger tight. That's slipping back and forth on the two bars held by this pin. Okay, and now we can tighten up the pin. Tighten these nuts just a little bit more. Okay, and then when you're out in the field and ready to do cutting, you always check it one more time, and remember to either have the battery out or have the chain brake forward when you reach up here and check this. Wear gloves. I had to not wear gloves right now because I can't operate the camera with gloves on. Anyway, I think that might be the end.